Hey there, and thanks for joining us for this episode. And as we get started, I wanted to remind you to make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may be listening to podcasts. This podcast is sponsored by ServeHQ.church. ServeHQ is a place where you can train your volunteers and leaders online through effective video courses. And really, that's just the beginning. You've probably dealt with that frustration of trying to coordinate meeting times for training, trying to organize materials for helping people learn how to, whatever it may be, do some type of volunteer work or procedure at your church. And it quite honestly can just be really frustrating. Well, ServeHQ simplifies all of that by, again, putting it all online, allowing people to watch it and learn how to do ministry at your church at their pace. You can learn more and start using ServeHQ at www.servehq.church. That's www.servehq.church. Thanks to ServeHQ for sponsoring this episode. Well, now I look forward to presenting the main content of today's episode as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope right here on the Church Advance podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Church Advance podcast. Brian Sams here, and I'm in the studio today with my friend, Pastor Brent Armstrong. Welcome to the podcast, Pastor Brent.
It's great to be with you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Yes, sir. Why don't you take just a quick minute before we get into our conversation today and tell us a little bit about your church and your family and how long you've been serving there.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Brent Armstrong from Tucson Baptist Church in Tucson, Arizona. And we've been there in our 17th year in Tucson, Arizona. It's a desert. It is dry, brown, hot, but it's a great place to serve. And we have 3 children, all married, 9 grandchildren, and privileged to have our youngest son serving on staff, Jonathan, and he's our executive pastor. So it's just wonderful to be able to serve with some family members.
Absolutely. Of course, we go way back. Now, I mean, goodness, 20, over 20 years, well over 20 years, 23 years, 24 years. And so back when I first got out of college, I served at Oakwood Baptist Church back in South Carolina.
That's correct.
And that's how, so, you know, I just love to be able to talk to you generally, but to have you on the podcast is a real treat because I've heard you can measure your real friends in decades. Mm-hmm. You know, you just don't. People come, people go. I always say you have friends for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. And there's only a handful of people that make the lifetime category.
It's been amazing when you look back over these 20 plus years. You and Angie come to our church, newly married, young in your married life, on the road to evangelism. And we've, gone through that journey with you from adoption to birth to adoption to transitioning out of Oakwood Baptist Church to, your teaching in a college and traveling for a college to Jacksonville. And through all of that, God has allowed our hearts to still be knit together as friends. I'm so grateful for that.
Oh, I'm grateful for you. And in fact, I'll just go ahead and put another shameless plug. About the time this releases, my book, Rescued, will be released. It actually hits official publication on September 24th. And I appreciate your endorsement of the book. Of course, there's very few people I more want to have endorsed because you lived through the first adoption with us. You were my pastor. Yes. During that time. What a time.
Honestly, I look back and truthfully at that time, you were like 100 miles an hour preaching wherever anyone. I mean, you did some crazy things. Preach here on a Sunday and Monday, you're preaching in a revival and I don't even know how you got there, but you were full steam ahead. But yet your wife, she oftentimes was teaching in our ministry or coaching in our ministry. Wasn't on the road with you every trip. And so Shelley and I could see just that yearning she had to have a child. And as we personally got to know you and Angie, and then just that longing she had. And for whatever reason, at that season, God did not bless you with a child. And then the adoption process came to fruition. That was an amazing journey, how God provided.
In the book, there's 2 stories that I tell. You read the book.
Yes.
And, I mean, I appreciate your endorsement, but it's an amazing story. I mean,
is.
it's not just because I wrote it, and it's not just because it's my story. If this were anybody else's story, I would be picking it up and reading it and loving every second of it. But 2 of the most extraordinary stories in the book are about people at Oakwood. And one of them, I don't know to this day. I don't know who miraculously provided a very large sum of money. I've often wondered, like, I think I thought I maybe know who it is, but I probably don't. You know, those kinds of things, you're always surprised by those kinds of things. But man, what a time Oakwood was, what a shaping time. And man, you know, you helped me really get started. I'll never be out of your debt for that.
I'd just like to say, people should read the book. While it is a personal journey, just the scriptural truths you share in it is amazing. So you can have nothing to do with adoption and be completely blessed by your book. It's well done.
Well, thank you. And we did put together an 8-week video-based, like, small group curriculum that churches can use, and it highlights those biblical principles and allows you to hear about it, then share it in that setting. So that's also available on the pre-order site, briansams.com/rescued. But I wanted you to come today. Well, first of all, thanks for coming and preaching at our church.
Absolutely.
This is the first time you've actually been in the actual services. I think you did a couples retreat a couple years ago, but I'm super excited about tonight and our church hearing you for the first time. So I said, hey, let's have a podcast here. So I wanted to focus on, you've been a pastor for now over 25 years, between the two, 26, 27 years. And the thought that hit me as I was thinking about this was, over 26 years, no doubt, there's been some good, there's been some bad, and there's been some ugly. So, the more and more we're in ministry, the more you realize that most people don't make it 25, 35, 45 years. It just doesn't happen. So when you stay that long, you've seen a lot of different things. So I wanted to start with just, like, maybe a couple of what have been some of the really good, exciting, dynamic things that you've experienced in all these years of pastoring.
Sure. I love it when a marriage has been in trouble and God restores that husband and wife, and then they flourish. I love it when you see someone that was perhaps deep in sin, maybe alcohol, drugs, and yet God saves them, their life changes, and they go on to be used of the Lord. The thrills are when God changes people's lives, and then they go on to serve Him. That's the, building a big building is it will immediately begin to fall apart once it's finished. Wow. A new suit, a new this, a new that, it begins to fall apart. But what doesn't fall apart is a life that's been transformed by the Lord. And those are those mountaintop experiences when you can go back and see someone coming out of the military and Lord calls them into ministry, and now they're pastoring, and they're still pastoring 15 years later. Those are the God transforming lives, is the mountaintops.
It's interesting you say that, because I used to hear, I can't remember where the original statement was, but essentially it's ministry is people work, not paperwork. And I have found that the most rewarding and the toughest, of course, but then just ultimately what it's all about is the ministry of reconciliation. We are trying to mend hearts back to God, to each other, and so I find it challenging to, if I'm not careful, to lean in on some of the, whether it's administrative work or whatever, if you're not careful. But really, at the end of any good day, it's probably had something attached to somebody that you prayed with, served, helped, taught, multiplied, discipled, whatever. So that's really, really great advice. What about some of the bad? What are some of the bad things that you would say are tough and just a grind, and maybe are the things you maybe look least forward to waking up and doing?
Just as I said, people whose lives have been transformed are great. It's people that cause those low points 100%. In these past years, we've had some low points. 2018 was perhaps the lowest point I've ever had in ministry. Our church had been vandalized 6 different times, significant vandalism. But we also had a man in our church who served as a deacon. He killed his wife, daughter, 16-year-old daughter, attempted to kill his 17-year-old son. And it rocked our church to its core because a deacon, someone that had the perfect family, the children were beautiful, it didn't make any sense. Those are the low points. And even years later, you wonder why God allowed our church to go through that. And out of it, there's certainly been fruit. But those are some difficult times. I try not to focus on those, and Lord, what can I learn and move on? But people's what makes your low points, and people's what honestly makes your high points.
Yeah. So how do you? I know me. I've brushed up a few times with cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
Because Angie and I talk about this all the time. It's like you deposit a lot of trust, a lot of time, and investment, and so many times it doesn't pan out. Are there any things that you try to do that keep you off of that cynical edge?
That's a great question. But actually, 4 years ago, coming out of COVID, I read a book, and in that book, there was just one section that really just captured my heart, and it is this: cut out any influence that takes you away from your focus on the Lord. And then, that thought, I continued to read, and really, even if you lose what's thought a friendship or an association, if it's a negative influence in your life, you don't need it. Cut it out. And so really, these last 4 years, without apology, if someone is negative in my life, honestly, if it's a church member that wants to be around me, but it's always negative, I find ways to cut that out. Or if it's pastors and schools and colleges and associations, if there's this expectation of some type of loyalty that has nothing to do with my ministry, I don't need that. So I cut it out. And it's been so freeing.
Yeah, that's really good. Paul said, Bible Paul said, I will gladly spend and be spent for you, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I am loved. And then of course, Peter has this argument in 2 Peter 1 that when you add to your faith virtue, but what's the top one is love, self-sacrificial giving of yourself to God and to others. And it hit me that what's helped me with cynicism is trying to focus that my objective is to love and to serve people. And in the loving and serving of people, if it's genuine love, if I'm actually doing it because I love God and love people, I can't expect a reciprocation and shouldn't need reciprocation. So it's a kind of a mindset, right? I mean, you're talking about boundaries. That's a great one. Just be unrelenting and saying, I'm just not going to participate in that. But do you find, I kind of probably bridge into ugly. I'm assuming, without even asking, we didn't even talk about this off the air, but I'm sure ugly has a lot to do with probably teams and sometimes and different things like that. But I know maybe if a guy gets burnt by a team member, a staff member, how do you find does it affect the way that you bring somebody in or how long you deal with a relationship in terms of like a staff guy? Because I know you have a large staff.
Well, when it comes to ugly, every one of us, we're subject to temptation, fall, which ultimately brings hurt to family, ministry. And so I think we still have to be careful and have guards in our life. Don't let our guard down. But when it comes to staff in particular, we've just thoroughly changed the way we hire and vetting and actually the spouse is part of it now. So make sure that that both the husband and wife understand the ministry position. Obviously we find that background checks, the people that are given, the names that are given to us are people that the applicant, they're approved of. So we try to do a deep dive into finding people that aren't associated with that applicant as far as somebody they want us to interview. And it's borne fruit in the fact that maybe this isn't the best team member for us. But once we go through that vetting process, then we include them. They're part of our family, and we are really connected. We don't want anyone in leadership that wants to only be involved in our lives Monday through Friday.
So you would say, would you say this, is this a fair statement? Because I've heard this many times and I've had to experience it a couple times, but hire slow, fire quick.
Absolutely. In fact, we recently had a situation that we had to take care of, and I read it as a secular author, but he says if it takes longer than 7 minutes to fire someone, you've made a mistake. And so you hire slowly, agonizingly slowly, doing your due diligence, and then when it doesn't work out, you separate quickly for the sake protection of your ministry. And you're always trying to protect your ministry.
So you can be trusting, but trusting doesn't have to be blind. It can be informed.
Correct.
And obviously, I think the chemistry part of teams can really go deep when you're thinking in terms of relationships that you're describing. Obviously, if you can have a prior relationship, that's a bonus. I know the larger your ministry gets, the more complex the staff, the harder that is. For me, with a smaller staff, smaller church, I can hire very relationally and very slowly because the needs develop much slower, that sort of thing. But for me, I'll be honest with you, man, a lot of my cynical edge came in that leadership world. It was leaders and former leaders, and now we have developed an entire system of lay leaders and people that has been built on a system of communication and trust, and it's developed slower, and it's made trusting them so much better.
Our staff, this isn't unique to us, but we hire in 3 C's: character, competency, and chemistry. Character's number 1. That's a deep dive into their background. Competency is, can they do the job that we need them to do? And so is there evidence of that from a prior situation? But chemistry is critical. It's if you can hire someone who has great character, can do the job, but if they don't assimilate to the team, it is rough. And so chemistry is important too, and that's why we'll take them on an activity. We'll see what interactions are. But if you have those 3 C's, you have a great team member.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like now, thankfully, now 9 years into this coming Sunday, I feel like I've just got the best scenario right now that I've ever had, and it just has changed that cynical edge of me, and I thank them for that. Good people have been faithful, and they've encouraged me, because leadership has. I think it was Kerry Newhoff wrote his book, I Didn't See It Coming, and I think the first chapter is on cynicism. And I remember reading that chapter. This was years ago, and I was like, yikes, man, that's me. I've seen enough bad. I've seen some ugly, and it's caused me to draw back, and I can't afford to not invest based upon my own cynical edge.
Right.
When maybe I just had, whether it was my anthropology, I don't know what was messing me up that was making me so disappointed sometimes with people. But I've got to have a focus. I love how you said that. That's the right thing. That's the simplest way I've ever heard it put. Whatever takes my eyes off the Lord, good or bad, doesn't matter what it is. Keep it central, and I think that's the right call. We had talked on the way over here about 2 things that have really been, according to you, the most philosophically earth-shattering shifts, if you will, over 25 years. You're going to have some. I think it's one of the funny things about a guy graduates from Bible college and you send him out, and either a church or his sending church or the college, has this firm expectation that nothing's ever going to change. I always laughed at that.
Yes.
Like, are you kidding me? If something doesn't change in you in 25 years, you stopped growing way too early.
Correct. The Apostle Paul never stopped growing, and he was the Apostle Paul.
Yeah. Bring me the books. Bring me. What was he reading about? You wonder what book? What was on those? What were the books he was reading as he was preparing to die?
Right.
That's an interesting thought. So I want you to. So there's 2 of them. We talked about missions and Bible colleges.
Sure.
So we'll start with missions, because that you had a philosophical, earth-shattering shift over the years in how you see the church's priority missions. I want you to describe it.
I agree. Philosophically, there's always going to be changes. It doesn't mean that those are character changes, but philosophically, we're going to preach on Sunday. That's not going to change.
Right.
But how we operate, I think, has changed a lot in 25 years. In missions, we have always been big supporters of missions, and our church has both churches I've been privileged to pastor has given a lot to missions, invested in missions, going in missions. But over the last few years, our philosophy has changed as a ministry in something called national pastors versus sending missionaries to the field. Let's take for a moment just sending a missionary. So you have a couple who graduates from Bible college. They meet each other in Bible college. They graduate from Bible college, and they're going to the mission field. They've never pastored a church. They've never taught a Sunday school class. They've preached 8 times in colleges for their pulpit speech class. Maybe they had some type of extension where they did a rotation. So they have no real genuine experience. And then they go to a mission board. They go to a candidate school. And then for 14 months to 2 years, sometimes 3 years, they're on what we call the deputation trail. That's how we've done it for years. Mm-hmm. In the process of that, thousands upon thousands of dollars are spent in food and travel and lodging and presentations. And guess what? They finally raise their support and they go to language school. Right. Language school for 18 months, 2 years. And supposedly they're serving in the ministry. Perhaps they're immersed in working with some pastor who's already on the field, or they're in candidate schools. So now we've lost 14 months to 2 years in deputation, and now they're up to 2 years in language school. So we're 4 years removed from them graduating from college, still have no ministry experience to speak of, because even when they go to church, they're not preaching in churches. Most pastors let you present,
show a video,
not preach. So how can we do it differently or better? And that's where we come into something called national pastors. And so our church supports a number of national pastors. Just like you have an interest in Haiti, we have an interest in Myanmar, the Philippines, and Cape Verde, West Africa. So we have national pastors. All right, with a national pastor, there's no deputation. The national pastor can live extremely cheaper than an American.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the expenses that an American has to have in order to even go to the field.
Yeah, so just real quick, the 4 years. So let's say the guy's tag is $7,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Okay, so 4 years of that. So just real quick math. What is that? 7 times 12 is 96. Mm-hmm. 96,000.
So just shy of $400,000.
Yeah, did I say that right? 12 times.
That's
4. That's 84.
84.
I'm sorry.
But still going to be
it's a lot of money.
4 years.
4 years is
it's just shy of $400,000, and he hasn't even started his
almost
ministry.
$500,000. The churches of America have given almost $500,000, and the guy hasn't stepped literally foot in the village to give the first track, invite the first person to church, have the first church service.
Right. Are some of those situations needed? Yes. But I have discovered that most are not, because there are national pastors. So let's take a national pastor. Mm-hmm. We just take the country of Myanmar. I've been to Myanmar many times, and in Myanmar, $250 to $300 per month is what the average person makes. So a pastor in Myanmar, we can pay him $300 a month, and he's making what everyone else in his village makes. That's per month. So $300 per month. Well, if we even raise it $350, he's now above what everyone else is making, so he can support a church. That man, in 4 years, at a fraction of the cost for the missionary who's never even made it to the field, he will have won more people and may have started 2 other churches in that same 4-year span. I think we've missed what's going on. Years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when I was in ministry, the economics were completely different. We're talking about sending a missionary for $2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. We're talking, as you said, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 a month. 20 years later, when in a country like the Philippines, Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar, those Asian countries, literally $500 a month we can be supporting.
So good night. It's crazy. If you take 8,000, let's take 9,000 because the math's easier. $300, that's 3%.
Right.
3% with quicker return on investment if you think in terms of churches planted. Let me ask you a question, because I know some guys, I've heard the arguments, you have too. Americans are so funny about this. What about the accountability? And so how do you engage the national guys you support, let's say support 20, 30, and whatever it is? What are you doing? Emailing, phone calling?
That's a great question. Technology is amazing. Right. Everyone has a cell phone, even in a third world country. Yep. And everyone uses WhatsApp, or they use an app like that. And we support a national pastor in the Philippines, and he sends me updates through his WhatsApp pictures. We support a national pastor in India, and he's going through a building project right now at a fraction of the cost of what an American could do it. And he sends me pictures every week of the updates.
I was going to say probably more regularly than the monthly
or
paper.
bi-monthly that a lot of American missionaries send. Every other month they send a letter, and sometimes they're trying to find something to put in the letter.
Yeah, right. I had coffee with so and so, pray for him to be saved. You're like, well, man, that happened 2 months. That's great. Wow, that's and I think so. What we end up doing, just like many other things in ministry or culture, the church, particularly that have the independent nature, get behind the 8 ball so much, and they're not even thinking about something so obvious. I mean, I could pick up my phone right now and message Ashraf. He's a cab driver in Israel that I know, and if I wanted to go over there this week and just spend a couple days, I'd just call him. Hey, I'm going to drop in Jerusalem. I'll see you. Can you ride me around for 2 days? I mean, that's the world we live in. Facebook. You don't have to be in America.
Right.
What about Zoom? We all learned about all these things. It's like COVID should have woke us up and said, oh, we're very connected.
Right.
I could have a meeting right here in my office in 5 minutes with people from all around the world and do it just now. So that's a brilliant answer.
Honestly, the only drawback is, how are we training national pastors? And frankly speaking, that's where many of the English missionaries who have gone on before us have done a good job establishing Bible college, Bible institutes in many of these countries. And we just have to connect those pastors to those Bible institutes. Again, it's at a fraction of the cost.
So let's take a guy in Myanmar. What's the name of the college that you connect with there?
Grace Baptist Theological Seminary.
So a guy, let's say you've connected with this pastor in Myanmar who needs further education. You're going to connect him to Grace. And
it's $500 for 1 year of college. So for $2,000, he can get his undergrad and master's for $2,000 at Grace Baptist Theological Seminary. And these professors have been trained these national professors in Myanmar have been trained in English colleges here in the States.
So they're over there as, are they nationals? These are Myanmar nationals who have come to the States, gotten theological education, have gone back.
That's correct.
And they're paid by the seminary or whatever. Wow, that's impressive. And no doubt Myanmar is one sample of, like in Haiti, I mean, Pastor Casimir has Christian Believers Bible Baptist College. I mean, it's there. That's what they do. So it's already there. They don't need our curriculum. They don't need our $70,000 a year professors. They certainly don't need to come to America. And you basically bypassed a ton of expense and time. And you've likely increased the mission, because then here's what you don't have. You don't have the cultural barriers. Every missions college in America has a class called something like cultural anthropology. So I'm trying to teach a kid how to be aware of, you're not in Kansas anymore. You've just stepped into India, and it's different there. And you need to, and by the way, and you know this, back in the day when missionaries were doing what we would call crazy radical things, Hudson Taylor, Amy Carmichael, what did they do? They wholeheartedly dressed like they were Chinese. Right. And I mean, full blown, you would have thought that Hudson Taylor was Chinese, the way he dressed, the way he did his hair. So, I mean, they literally absorbed into a culture, which you don't even have that issue if you're from India.
That's correct.
So we're talking about saving money. We're talking about saving time. The accountability argument is gone. Boots on the ground for training. It's almost like...
Can I go back to that accountability?
Yeah.
What I have discovered is that is not an issue with a national pastor. It's way bigger issue for an English person going to a foreign country, because we have had all the vices of American trappings, and the English person wants those trappings in the country. The national pastor doesn't even think about that. He doesn't even have a television in his home. He doesn't have, many of them may not have Facebook. They just have an app that they communicate with. They don't have the vices that we have, or the American idols that we have. And so accountability, the national pastor works way harder than many of the English pastors.
100%. And then I found too, the mechanism itself has its own accountability. I mean, we act like, I think Casimir, he's my closest person in this world. Are you kidding me? He holds those brothers more accountable than any accountability structure I've seen out here in our independent world. I mean, he's planted 72 churches across the island. That means there's 72 pastors that went to his college. He's sent evangelism teams out. He's like functions in a similar way to like Paul. I mean, he's training them, sending them out, and they come in every year for their national conference. They report their churches, and he's told me about brothers who have sinned, and he's dealt with them, and he has led the churches to remove them as the pastor and went through restoration process. It doesn't have to be as sophisticated as we think it is.
Let me give you a quick story about a national pastor, just to illustrate what I'm talking about. Benjamin Solis, he's a national pastor in Philippines. He's outside of Manila in a very, very poor section. Nobody has washer, dryers. They hang their clothes out to dry. 2-3 outfits at the most. I mean, very, very poor section outside of Manila. So he's a national pastor. We support him. I was recently invited to speak at his church. I picked up at 8:00 Sunday morning to go to his church. We have Sunday school class. We have the morning service. We have lunch. And then we have the afternoon service. And I said, okay. We got through with the afternoon service about 2:30. And so I've been there from 8:30 to about 2:30. And so I'm ready to go back to the hotel. And he says, oh, you want to go back to the hotel? And I said, I thought we were finished. He goes, oh, no, we do door-to-door visitation now from now till 6. And then we have our evening service at 6. And I said, you do this every Sunday? Every Sunday, preacher, every Sunday.
Wow.
And I'm worried about accountability.
That's right. They're the hardest working people. Those brothers in Haiti, those dudes are out there plowing fields, providing crops for their family. In fact, we took a work group, a typical mission trip with a work team, and we had some of our strongest men go, and they were sitting on the sideline dusted because these Haitian men were just out. And these were pastors. Mm-hmm. These are guys carrying cinder blocks, hand mixing concrete in the dirt. I mean, they're just different, right. And in some ways, far more proficient. And then I love the other fact, and I know this isn't true across the board, but in many cases, some of those brothers out there in obscure places, they're not tainted with all the political stuff. Stuff that would be an issue to us would never be an issue to some of them. Right. So there's a lot of unity and power there. I'd love for some of our audience, I'd love to have a conversation about this that sprung out. I'd love to hear some people's thoughts on that. But the second one was about Bible colleges. Mm-hmm. So tell me that. And I have a real big interest in this because, as you know, my doctoral thesis work was on the priority of local church training. And I mean, here's me I've got 2 master's degrees and a D-Min. I've been through a lot of formal theological education, but I feel the same way you do. And even wrote my doctoral work in a seminary as to why seminaries were struggling and falling short. So I want to hear your thoughts on how that's changed and how you view that.
Philosophically, I've personally had a big change when it comes to the topic of Bible colleges. 25 years ago, you graduate from high school and you go to college. Mm-hmm. That was the philosophy. There was no such thing as staying at home. Even if your church had a little Bible institute, that wasn't the same as going to Christian Bible college. Now in the year 2025, I have a completely different philosophy. Bible college is not for everyone. Here's what happens. So we have many students in Bible college due to the size of our ministry. We have students at a number of different Bible colleges as well as the University of Arizona, Arizona State. So we have up to 50 in college right now. All right. So here's what we discovered is that we will send our students who have graduated from high school to Bible college, and we never see them again.
That's right.
They're gone.
Yeah.
So they never return to our ministry. So we are actually supplying the workforce in America at the same time that I'm recruiting for people to come to my ministry. Something's backward there. Plus, I've discovered that with now online education, why not employ some of these college students that I see great potential in, let them underwrite the cost of their education by helping them with online education. And they work in my ministry under our mentorship, whether it's in English and Spanish, and we have the opportunity to train the next generation. And they are then involved in our ministry, giving to our ministry. Perhaps they find their life mate in our ministry. Now, there are exceptions where because of a particular field of maybe medical or a home situation, where we would say, we really think you should go to Bible college. So I think every case is individual. But here's the frustrating thing to me about Christian Bible colleges. And we invite all of them to come and during the summer and fall break or winter break to come and present. Is the expectation now of Bible colleges for me to pay for the expenses of them to come to my ministry to recruit my students away from me. Someone needs to tell these Bible college presidents that it just doesn't sit well with a lot of pastors. I'll give you an example I shared with you. Recently, through correspondence of one of these Bible colleges, which all of them do it, but this is the very specific one, is they said, where will you be lodging our group? What will the honorarium be that you'll be giving our group? Will you provide meals for our group? We plan to arrive here and we'll leave here. That's actually written in their document. I took that and went to my pastoral staff and said, this frustrates the fire out of me. Just that ministry expectation that I owe a Bible college something. So you're going to take my student, you're going to charge them.
Oh, crazy amounts of money.
And that you're charging me as the church to send my students to you. Something's philosophically wrong with that. And so I just really have a heart.
Yeah, it's like a guy who wants to host a conference at your church, but then he turns around and says, "I need this honorarium." Wait a second. Wait a second. What are you going to do with all those registration funds? Right. You're going to get those too, aren't you? Yeah. You know, it is interesting, and I think I love the first thing you said, because I think the real rethink is who's in it for what, and what are we doing, but this idea of never seeing my kids again, and whatever happened to the church shaping its leaders and then sending its leaders. And I always tell our guys here, I'm going to shape you, and I'm going to send you. I may send you here. It may be that you're being commissioned in this flock. You're going to be a pastor in this flock, or it may be that I'm going to commission you to another country or across town to plant a church. And I think the sidestep of that is the church. The hard thing is the church has lost its responsibility to actually be in that training process. I remember a guy. It was a discussion board, I think, when I was in seminary, and he said this, or maybe it was a class I was teaching. I can't remember the exact setting, but he said, "I don't really feel called to training ministry." That's what he said. It was either live to me as a teacher or it was on a board. And I wrote him back or spoke, I can't remember which one, and said, "You don't have that option." 1 Timothy 2:2. The things that you have heard among me, among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men, who shall be able to teach others also. That's a pastoral admonition. So churches train pastors and churches start churches. We all believe that. In fact, a lot of these colleges champion being the local church college. But what about, but the sad thing is, it's not the church college training its own people. It's the church college training everybody else's people. And I agree with you that there's multiple ways to do this. And I'm not saying that every kid shouldn't or couldn't go to one of those. But I think the bigger takeaway for me is, one, the church and the pastor taking their God-given responsibility seriously. And then number two, and then, I mean, my other whole other angle in this is the whole process of the call, the internal call that the Holy Spirit puts on a person, and then the external call, which we all know is ordination. But if you don't train them, observe them, watch them, a guy just comes home from a youth conference and says, "God called me to preach on Friday night," and you go, "Bang, let's go to college here." But you didn't observe him. You didn't. If any man desires the office of a bishop, he desires a good work. A bishop must first then be
blameless.
So obviously whoever this guy is had to be under the tutelage of the pastor, and it needed to be recognized that that his character was right, that his gifts were in place, and that he had proven himself faithful in the church. Can't do that outside church. Mm-hmm. So if these colleges or seminaries are important, they are not enough. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the conclusion that I really came to. And then this whole thing, I mean, when you shared that story with me earlier, I could spit fire about this stuff because I have been traveling in itinerant type work for 22 years, 23 years.
Long time.
Every year I'm on the road somewhere preaching for someone. Never one time in my entire life have I asked anybody for anything. Mm-hmm. Where am I going to stay? Where am I going to, how much money are you going to give me? Mm-hmm. You know, are you going to cover my expenses? I don't ask those things. My encouragement to any of those colleges would be this: if you're going to send some sort of informational letter out, word it like this: is your ministry able to provide a place of lodging for our students? Mm-hmm. Is your ministry able to feed us a meal? Mm-hmm. Is your ministry able to give us an honorarium to get us down the road a little further? And I've received one of those before from a guest speaker. Mm-hmm. And I appreciated it because at the end it said this does not change whether or not I will come. Correct. But it just helps me plan. The way it was worded, mm-hmm. the way it was asked, was brilliant and servant-minded. Mm-hmm. I think that's the thing. Who's serving who here? Mm-hmm. And so I think when you put the two things together, right, national pastors and a Bible college kind of reconsideration, you will end up where you are, which is heavily invested in the national training and even in these seminaries.
I think sadly, some of these Bible colleges have this entitlement mentality, like I'm doing you a favor, so therefore we'll come, you pay us to come present, and then also we're going to take your kids from you, and you'll never see them again. There's a problem with that philosophy.
I think they should be thinking. I'll tell you what I'd be thinking if I'm a lead a Bible college. I'm going to be on the front end saying, how can I get my kids back to you? How can I get your kids back to you? If you need my help to support and undergird you, mm-hmm. then I'm going to be making a beeline for getting them back to your ministry. Because most of these kids, right, what's going to happen to the average kid who graduates Bible college? He's going to go out, he's going to be an assistant somewhere. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be poverty levels. He's going to be working a second job. Mm-hmm. How many churches are able to pay the $60,000, $70,000 a year assistant pastor? Right. Not many.
Not many.
When the average church in America is 70 people, mm-hmm. median size is 100. I pastor about 200 people. Mm-hmm. We're not knocking the walls down here with expensive staff. So what does that mean? It means a guy could legitimately go back to his home church, have a job, mm-hmm. making better money, better benefits and all that, and working legitimate ministry in his church, mm-hmm. rather than being sent off to Kansas somewhere with a title and all he's really doing is cleaning buses. Right. You know, this kind of stuff. And I think the whole system needs to be rethought mm-hmm. a little bit. Man, that is absolutely gold. I can't wait to tag and frame this post with some fishing language, because I think these last 20 minutes or so have been really thought-provoking. So thanks for being on the show, and more importantly than that, thanks for your friendship and ministry too.
Absolutely. And I encourage everyone, get your book, read it. It'll be an encouragement.
Thank you. God bless you guys. Have a great day. We'll see you next time on Church Fans Podcast.
Thanks again for joining us for this episode. And I do want to remind you to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you may listen to podcasts. While you're there, be sure to leave us a 5-star review and then share the podcast with other pastors and leaders that you believe this content could be a help to. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video, and then also share a comment with any thoughts, feedback, or questions you may have. We may just be able to answer those in a future episode. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us as we continue to advance a reformation of fellowship, partnership, and gospel hope amongst Bible-believing pastors and churches. And we'll see you next time right here on the Church Advance Podcast.